question, which was most people, when they have a job, they have a product to show for it or a service. Now, what kind of service do you give your people?
Well, we try to give the best service that we can. We're all about customer service. We try to give our plans, we try to give our client the kind of planning or the kind of care for their case, the best possible care that we can. Make sure that our plans are very thorough and that they've covered all the routine things that would come up and things that are what I would call reasonably foreseeable. There's some far out stuff that we can't really plan for. Some of the stuff that we think is fairly routine, clients think is pretty far out there. Mm-hmm. But we do this all day and we see things that other people don't see, and therefore we just look at it like we are trying to take care of our clients' potential issues that they're likely to run into.
Now, I know that you explain things very well. Do you do teaching?
I do. I've taught CLE courses to lawyers, CPE credit courses to CPAs, CE credit for the Texas Department of Insurance. Our firm has also done some continuing education with other groups of people out there like nurses, real estate agents, and that kind of thing. I love to teach. And we teach our own clients. We teach the general public. What we do requires a lot of education. Everybody at some point is going to need either us or somebody like us. But they don't really know. They don't have any idea what their issues are. And, you know, in our profession, it's been said that clients don't walk in with a label on their forehead as what they need. We have to figure that out. We have to help them figure it out. And we have to do that by asking them questions and then educating them about the issues that we see.
Now, do you enjoy being a lawyer?
I do. I think a lot of lawyers don't like what they do, but I'm very fortunate. I practice in an area that I truly enjoy. And one of the things that I get to do is at the end of our engagement with a client, the vast majority of the time, we've made the client happy. There's a lot of lawyers who practice in areas where at the end of their engagement, their client's really not happy. Litigation, for example, it's very difficult for anybody to come out of litigation being happy. It's always a compromise. It was brutal to go through. And at the end, you just feel beat up regardless of how it comes out. We don't have that problem.
Good.
So that makes it fun.
Yeah, you can look at yourself in the mirror at the end of the day.
Yes.
Or in the morning, you know, when you... Well, what kind of person, in your opinion, should go into the lawyering business? What would you tell a young person?
Well, while there are all types of people who go to law school, and there's a great variety of people in law school, what I would tell anybody is don't go to law school just because you think being a lawyer is fun or because you think about power or money or anything else. If the motivation isn't to go help people, then I think they're going to wind up very unhappy because there's a lot of ways to make money. There's a lot of easier ways to make money than going through law school and the bar exam. And a lot of people have said the practice of law would be a lot more fun if we didn't have to worry about clients, didn't have to deal with them. So a lot of times lawyers are not happy with what they do, and I think a lot of times that's because they went in with the wrong motivation. I truly believe that law is a profession like the ministry, like medicine, that people should go into because they feel called to it and not because they happen to love to argue or they think being a lawyer just sounds like a cool thing to do. The people who go for the wrong reasons are going to wind up in a profession that they don't really enjoy.
Have you ever had to do this? Have you ever had to go out and drum up business?
Oh, absolutely. It's part of our job. And We do that in a variety of ways. Teaching is one. Writing is one. I've written a lot of reports and a couple of books that are not currently published, but I would like to get them published. Those are all things, meeting with other lawyers. There's parts of the marketing that I absolutely detest. We've got people in our office who love going to, let's say, the Chamber of Commerce and shaking hands and meeting everybody else. And me, I'd rather kick porcupines barefooted than do that. But on the other hand, let me go share something with colleagues that helps them. Let me go share something with people that helps them. That I'm very happy to do. And different lawyers, a guy who I consider one of my early mentors said, if you'll go do these things, you'll have more business than you know what to do with. And I went and did those things faithfully and reliably and tried them for years. And they didn't work for me. But something that he said is never going to work, but you need to do it, is speaking to the Bar Association. Do it to help your colleagues. You'll never get business from it. So, with the altruistic concept of I'm going to help my colleagues, that's what I did. And to my complete shock, almost every time I speak to a Bar Association, I get business out of it.
Well, they make referrals, I'm sure,
And you know what I figured out is he's a salesman. He missed his calling. He should be selling ice to Eskimos in January, and he'd make a fortune at it. I'm not that way. I can deal effectively with engineers and lawyers, and other people can't deal with them. So we're all different, and what worked for him did not work for me, but what didn't work for him has worked for me. But I'm grateful I heard his ideas, because it gave me a place to start, and then I kind of realized eventually, hey, my personality is different than his, and I can go take what I'm good at and find natural markets for me. Took his basic model, just not in the same area that he used it in.
Now you're a partner in a law firm, and you're past 30. So I suspect that you're financially secure at the moment. And have you ever had any lean years coming up to now?
Absolutely. My first year in the practice of law, I honestly did not make very much money. It was a real struggle. Law jobs were very hard to find, and I was on an eat what you kill deal. And if I couldn't bring business in the door and get people to pay, I couldn't get paid. Well, they don't teach you how to do that in law school. You have to go out and figure that out on your own. So yeah, we had some lean years. And we still have what I would call lean years from time to time. Our business goes up and it goes down. And one of the most interesting things to me is when I look back, there have been 2 events that have caused a boost in our business that are hard for me to conceive of. You remember when the planes hit the towers on September the 11th, 2001?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, economically, the U.S. took a downturn. Our business went up. I couldn't.
People wanted to plan for the.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when we invaded Iraq in 2003, again, we were in an economic recession. And once again, we saw a boost in our business. And I eventually figured out war is actually good for our business. I hate that.
Yeah, war's good for the economy sometimes.
Well, sometimes, but what I think it is war brings the reality that, any of us could die at any point. And the night before 9/11, I was teaching a class with a financial advisor at a church. And we had talked about that afternoon. I said, are you going to talk about disappearance? Somebody disappears. And he says, Rex, no, that never happens. We taught our class at night, and the next afternoon I get a call from him, and he says, "Hey, you know what I told you was ridiculous yesterday? I just realized that 2,500 or 3,000 Americans have disappeared. Maybe we better cover that."
Yeah.
And I said, well, I was already going to cover it, but yeah, I hadn't really thought of that, but yeah, unfortunately it happens.
Well, you've never had to make anybody disappear. You've never put anybody in prison, have you?
No, that is not what we do. I've never done anything related really to the criminal area. We have had some clients who have wound up in prison, thankfully not for anything that we had anything to do with. And inevitably for things that if they had told us and asked our advice before they did it, we would have told them not to do it. But sometimes even really smart people do really stupid things.
Well, as a life planner or a estate planner, how many people have you helped or your firm helped?
Well, before Fred and I merged, I had helped about 3,000 families. We merged almost 2.5 years ago. And I just know the pace since then. It's been another couple of hundred people at least, maybe another 300. So 3,200, 3,300 families that I've done some kind of work for down through the years. It's, as we get busier, I can say I've helped people that I haven't even actually met because other people in our firm, I've helped them take care of cases even though I might not be meeting all of those clients. So
That's a lot of people.
Yes.
That's a whole city.
Yes, it's a small city.
I want to ask you about the tower at the Grand Canyon. Tell me about that.
I brought that up because somewhere in here you talked about planning for the future. So our family went on vacation to the Grand Canyon. There's a tower on one end of the Grand Canyon, and we went out there one day to look at it, and it's 4 stories tall. It was built back in the 1830s.
Ooh.
As we go up, they explain why this tower was built. It was a guard tower so that they could tell when Indians were potentially a threat. Well, you go out on the first floor, or go up to the first floor, and you look out, and you can see way out in the desert. Well, they told us that the Indians that you could see from the first floor are Indians that would attack perhaps late that day or early the next morning. You go up to the second floor, and you can see even further out, but the Indians you can see out that way, they're a day or two away from being able to attack. You go up to the third floor, and it's 3 days out, and you go to the fourth floor, and it's a week out or whatever.
Wow.
And we're going up there, and I told my wife, this is what I do for a living. And she thinks I'm crazy, of course.
You look out for savage Indians?
Yeah, and I said, no, what happens is we go up to the fourth floor, and we look out, and most of our clients live on the first floor. They can look out there and see what's right in front of them. We, on the other hand, have been to the far end of this. We've done the administration for people who have died. We've seen what's happened to their families. And we can tell them about things that are way off out in the desert that they can't see, and frequently they can't even conceive of. So people tend to think of their families as everything's going to go just like it is right now. And I'll give you an example. My kid brother was born in 1960. From 1960 until 1990, my family, from both sets of grandparents down, we had no deaths in the family.
Whoa. 30 years death-free. That's pretty good.
Yes, it truly is amazing. But if you look at the 28 years since, all 4 of my grandparents have died. 2 of my 9 cousins have died.
Your uncle, I remember.
All 3 of my uncles have died. Both of my parents have died. We've experienced so many changes in the last 28 years. And, it was weird. We would go to see my grandparents, and we would think, someday they're not going to come out on the porch and wave goodbye to us because they're not going to be here to do it. But it took so long, and then one day we would go over and see my folks in Irving. We live in Little Elm now. And my parents would come out on the driveway and, wave as we're leaving. And one day in November, I said, and it was the first time it really occurred to me, someday we're going to come here and it'll be the last time that happens. How little I realized that was 2 times away. My dad was about to be diagnosed with cancer and would never walk again, never come out on the driveway and say bye again. And we had no idea the radical change that was about to take place in our life. And when I made the comment, I was like, well, it's in the distant future. I had no idea it was about to happen.
I met your parents.
Yeah.
They're nice folks.
They were very nice folks. And they both passed on now. And, the changes that we saw, my dad was in a nursing home for 3 years and 8 months before he died. My mother lived for basically 3 years and 8 months or 9 months after he died. And so over that about 7.5 years, we've had some radical changes in our lives. So I can look back now and say, if I were talking to my family in the 80s, I'd be able to say, this is the kind of stuff you need to prepare for. But nobody realized that. And most people don't. They live in this is what I can see, what's going to happen today and tomorrow.
Yeah, that's most of us.
It is most of us. So my job is to help people understand we're not planning for what you see today. We're planning for the things that are coming that you can't see or don't see. And a lot of times clients even think, well, that's never going to happen. I had a client one time, he had been married for 62 years.
Ooh.
And his wife died. His wife died the day before I was supposed to go meet with him.
Oh.
I met with him 2.5 months later. He told me, I love my wife. I'm never going to get remarried. And 2 weeks later, when he came in to sign his documents, he brought his fiancée.
Did he have a lot of money?
Well, he did actually, but she didn't know it.
Oh.
But what happened in his life was that conversation led him to realize how lonely he was. Had a good friend who was his next door neighbor, and the two couples had been married a long time. Her husband had died some years earlier. His wife had died. He and her were still friends. And he realized, well, it made sense to get married.
Well,
but he had no idea that was coming. I mean, 2 weeks before he was engaged, he had no idea it was coming. Well, that's unusual, but it's an example of how when clients tell me something's never going to happen, well, you don't know. You just don't know.
in that case, it was a good story for him,
It worked out well for him, and I'm glad it did, but it really pointed out to me how important it is to plan for things that are within the realm of reasonable possibility. That didn't seem reasonably possible to him, but I realize now it is possible. We've had people tell us stories, Dad was 97 years old in a nursing home and he got married. I'm thinking, wow, we live in a funny world.
They do that.
They do.